Okay, so Mah Nishtana, and the Mah says Mah Nishtana Laila Zeh Mikol HaLeilot. And how different is this night from all other nights? Shebekol HaLeilot Anu Ochlin Chametz U'Matzah. And all other nights we eat chametz and matzah. Hello, Ben. So one of the questions that we're going to ask is it says Bekol HaLeilot. How different is this night from all other nights? But wait, what's the obvious question? It's not different from all other nights, because all other nights on Pesach, we have a lot of other nights on Pesach, which we're going to have to eat matzah and chametz. So he asked a very obvious question. It's not so different. There's a lot of other nights which are coming up where it's exactly the same. We don't eat chametz for the next 7 days in America and the next 6 days in Israel. So the Minchas Chinuch gives the answer, gives a halachic answer that that he gives a technical answer that if some matzah was mixed in, we could eat it. But if some chametz was mixed in with matzah, we could eat it. But on the first night, we don't fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. Okay, that's one technical answer. Another answer, anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's just a question you could put out there. If you're looking for ways to get everybody's head in a pretzel, so to speak, or a pretzel matzah, you can talk about this. Okay. He gave an answer that a technical halachic answer that relates to the level of what's required, how pure the matzah needs to be in order to fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah. The actual mitzvah of eating matzah is only on the Seder night. It's not at the other nights.
Rabbi, I'm thinking if you throw that out for a question of the Seder, isn't the answer just, well, this night does not mean literally this specific night that's never going to happen again in history. It's this night in this season of 8 days.
Okay, that's exactly the answer that I skipped. That's the Mishnah.
No,
not the dumb answer. I just was moving on from the topic. It's a very good answer.
Okay,
it's an excellent answer. No, it's an excellent answer. But I just this question wasn't. I felt like we exhausted the topic, but you're absolutely right that's a great answer, and that's what the answer that they attribute to the Mishnah Halachos. Okay, so now the next question is, what does it mean on this night, kulo matzah? So why does it say it's entirely matzah? But it's not entirely matzah because we eat other foods. So again, the obvious answer is it refers to the bread on the table, that the bread on the table is all matzah and no chametz. That's the answer of Ravan. Rav Eliezer bar Nasan. He lived in Germany in the 12th century. The Rokeach, who lived 100 years later in Germany, he writes that the reason why we write on this night it's all matzah because the only thing we eat on this night is matzah. Meaning to say that on the night of Pesach, that's the day it needs to be entirely about matzah. We should make the whole day about matzah. That's the concept. Our whole night needs to be about matzah. Okay, that's it. The Or Yesharim explains that the obligation to eat matzah is only until midnight. So how can we say the whole night is matzah? It stops in the middle of the night. So meaning to say, so this person, the Or Yesharim, says it refers to the prohibition of chametz is the whole night and also the whole Pesach. Okay, we're going through some technical answers. The Shivcha Demara writes that kulo matzah refers to the idea that we have to eat all matzah before midnight because the whole night that we're referring to is the night before midnight because the midnight was already the start of the Exodus. We're recreating the scene leading up to it.
Right. Other question.
Yes. Oh, wow. We lost one on the Zoom, but we gained one in person just now. Okay, yes, Guy.
So we eat matzah before midnight, right?
You have to finish all the matzah before midnight, but it doesn't mean actually 12 a.m. It means what's called the halachic midnight, the middle of the night.
Oh. Why exactly in the middle of the night? Because that is started at midnight.
Well, the Exodus did start at midnight, so it's a question. That's a different discussion, but why we have to eat it before the middle of the night specifically, let's deal with that. We'll take that up when we have those sources in front of us. So I don't want to deal with that now, but it's an excellent question. Another, let me just give you two more answers. One answer is, why is it called entirely matzah? Because you're not allowed to put anything on the matzah. You can't put the maror on the matzah at this point, and you have to eat that. When you fulfill the mitzvah of matzah, you put nothing on it. Not even salt, not even cream cheese. And especially if you're very careful not to eat gebrocks like I am, and like many Hasidim are, you don't put anything on the matzah the whole Pesach except for the 8th day. The 8th day you have the Mashiach meal, you eat the matzah. All right, that's correct, but that doesn't fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. That's how they would eat maror. They would take the korach, mix it, put it in with some charoset, and then have it. And just give one more answer is, say this night is entirely matzah. Kulo, it's entirely to tell us that the chametz is prohibited even with just one drop. Just one drop of chametz, like one minuscule amount of chametz is prohibited. So there has to be pure matzah, no chametz. Now we have like a Hasidic idea. What's a hint to the idea that it's entirely matzah? It hints to the fact that by chametz, there's a mixture of good and bad. What's the mixture of good and bad? And now we go to our old friend who I visited his grave last week, Reb Tzvi Elimelech, the Dinaver, the Bnei Yisrael. He says that we're commanded in the Torah about the mitzvah, the prohibition of eating chametz, because chametz is called seor, which is like yeast. And the numerical value of that, the numerical value of chametz seor, chametz or yeast, together is Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. And what's the tree of knowledge? There was a mixture of good and bad. It says Eitz Hadas tov hara, the tree of knowledge, good and bad. So therefore, when we eat matzah, we're fixing the mistake of eating from the tree of knowledge. And so therefore, when it says kuo matzah, meaning to say we're only eating the good and we're not eating the mixture of good and bad. So matzah is pure. So you say, what does the matzah symbolize? You put it like this. What does the matzah, hold on one second. What does the matzah symbolize? Matzah symbolizes that we have something that's pure in our life, nothing mixed in, good or bad. There's very few things in the world that are pure. Obviously, it's hard for any human being to be pure, but on matzah, this is the only sacred food that the Jewish people eat, that we still eat today the whole year. The only sacred food is matzah, and it's kuo matzah. It's entirely pure. There's no bad in it. And Tiferes Shlomo, who's the Tiferes Shlomo? Tiferes Shlomo is the Radomsker Rebbe, and he writes that in exile, that right now everything we're doing now is in exile, and so also our speech that we can't speak in holiness is because is contaminated like this, and so therefore there is the miracle of the Exodus every year that we have the matzah, which is the matzah represents purity. So that's what matzah represents: simplicity and purity. Yes, Rabbi Yosef.
Doesn't the Gemara say that when a child eats bread, that's when he starts speaking? So that would be exactly what the Bnei Zachar said about the chametz and seor being the dat tov hara.
Beautiful. Very nice. Rabbi Yosef, Yasher Koach. Thank you. Okay, so now we go on. Now we have another explanation. We're still on the first, so to speak, question of the Mah Nishtana, that on all nights we eat chametz matzah, and on this night we eat only matzah. So the Rokeach explains that we ask the question, why on all nights, we eat whatever we want, whether it's chametz or matzah. But on this night, all matzah, meaning to say that this night we're obligated to eat matzah. Like it says, on this night you must eat the matzah. So that's the distinction. On this night, there's an obligation to eat the matzah. The Ezer Eliyahu writes that on all other nights, we eat chametz or matzah mixed together. But on this night, we only eat matzah without any mixture of chametz at all. The Biyan Ariel explains that the matzah that we're eating, this mitzvah matzah, is a reminder of the Karban Toda, which Rabbi Yossi spoke about in his 10 a.m. class this morning, actually. He spoke about the Karban Toda, the Thanksgiving offering. And the matzah is a reminder of this. And so therefore, when it comes to the Thanksgiving offering, that's actually unusual. It's unique. That is the only offering where we eat the chametz and matzah together. That's the mitzvah of the Thanksgiving offering. We eat 30 of the loaves are chametz and 10 of the loaves of bread that you bring with it are also matzah. But on this night, so the question is, on this night, we're only eating the matzah. So if it's supposed to remind us of the Thanksgiving offering, why are we only eating the matzah? That's his question. You had a question, Jeff?
That's a good question.
Okay. And then a fourth thing here is that on all nights when we make the large meal, we eat chametz and matzah. Because some people want to eat chametz and some want matzah. Some people want a roll and some people want flatbread. But on this night, we only eat matzah. It seems kind of obvious. So now we have the next question. Why are we asking, why do we eat matzah on this night? We just said why we eat matzah. This is the bread of anya, of affliction that our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. So why now? Why is it such a great question? We just gave the answer. Geshma question that they're asking here. So that's the question. You hear this question? It's a beautiful question. So simple. We just gave the answer. Yeah, Jeff, you were going to say something?
Because that's the child will ask that same question as well.
Oh, yeah. But it seems like it's a little bit sophisticated question for the child to ask. But yeah, so let's see. So Reb Zalman Sorotzkin in the sefer called Ashir V'Ashevach, he explains that Halach Ma'anya explains really why we divide the matzah into two, so that it looks like the bread of affliction. But so that's why it's the reason why it's called halach ma'anya. The halach ma'anya is to teach us why we divide the matzah in two, but it doesn't say why we're eating the matzah in the first place. Why is it a mitzvah? And so that's why we're asking about that. That's one idea. Another answer he gives is, okay, the halach ma'anya would only tell us that we have to eat matzah, but it wouldn't tell us why we can't eat chametz. So, like all other times, like let's say we have some things that we need to eat, doesn't mean we can't eat the other thing. So what's so bad about eating the chametz? And okay, so because if we want to show freedom, because this is the night of freedom, we should also eat bread. I mean, it's a very important question. It's a very simple question. That's the question of the Mah Nishtana. We understand why it's the bread of affliction, but if we're showing tonight we got freedom, then we should eat bread to show freedom. And it's not ridiculous because we eat challah every Friday night. So why don't we also eat challah on Seder night? We should eat matzah and challah. And so therefore we say that the matzah hints to freedom also, because the matzah was the bread of the redemption, that their dough didn't rise until they were redeemed. So that's the answer. So that's a beautiful, this is just like simple explanations of the Seder. It's not too complicated, but you can explain it. It's very powerful, beautiful ideas. Okay, so now we go to the question of the Tiferes Yonasan, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, and he wants to explain why right after the matzah we ask about the maror. On all other nights, we eat other vegetables, but on this night, maror, or maybe some versions are entirely maror. So, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz says that what's the reason why the matzah is next to the maror?
What's more?
Maror is the bitter herb, the lettuce, the romaine lettuce, or the horseradish that we eat on the Seder night.
After our Seder, you'll know what it is.
So,
I think I recall it.
yeah. So the reason why we have the question of the matzah next to the question of the maror is because they're connected to each other. Meaning to say, the reason why we have to eat matzah, and it explains the reason why specifically there's a mitzvah to eat the matzah at night, is because that since the night was when we were released, or we went free, therefore we have to eat it at night. It's meaning to say we have a question. The Exodus was early, and so therefore we say, is it because that the night completed and therefore we eat it at night, or is it because the exodus, the shibud, the servitude was so difficult, and so therefore we eat the maror. And so, meaning to say, what's the reason why I guess the fundamental question was, what's the reason why the exile was cut short? Is it because the maror was so, the servitude was so bitter, and so therefore because of the maror, or is it because the nights they also worked us at night, and so therefore the nights made every year we spent doubled? So that's the fundamental question, and the answer is the reason why we eat maror is because Hashem had mercy on us, and so therefore the reason we went out early. So the reason why we eat maror is because God had mercy on us, and if that's the case, the reason why we went out early is because the nights completed it, and we also eat the matzah only at night. So meaning to say, only after we understand why we eat maror do we understand why the mitzvah of matzah is only at night. So they're both involved. So basically the mitzvah of maror is showing that God had mercy on us, and because God had mercy on us, God also counted the nights, and that's why the mitzvah of matzah is only at night. A little bit of like a tricky question or a tricky answer. It's a very simple question, but now the question is, why don't we start with the maror? The maror should be the first question. I love those questions that the rabbis ask. Why isn't this question first? So, but that's a very simple question. You can raise it your Seder. Shouldn't the maror question be first? Chronologically, first we were embittered. Right? Very simple. Very simple question. Why? You can ask this to anybody of any age. Why isn't the mitzvah of maror, why isn't the eating of the maror, the question about the maror come prior to the question about the matzah?
Because you eat bitter and then eat the matzah, which is better after.
So, but the question is that first there was a bitterness, and only after the redemption, if the matzah is about redemption, that question about the matzah should come first. So the Yad Ramah says, the Haggadah Yad Ramah, who therefore it says in the orders, the last question is about the reclining, because the reclining hints to the redemption. And so that's why that's the last question. Meaning to say that the matzah here is not the matzah of redemption, it's the matzah of servitude. And another idea is to remind us that they put the maror in the middle to remind us that we're still in exile. So we still have the bitterness. Don't think it was just then and now we've gone past it. And so that's the idea.
Does the matzah come first in the pasuk? It says you should eat them.
Okay, so that's another answer you could give. You got to write your own Haggadah. Beautiful. Okay, so now we have to the very, very simple. There's another very, very simple question. We could have like 100. I'm going to write a book one day, Bli Neder. 100 questions on the Mah Nishtana. 100 questions on the 4 questions. This doesn't even make sense. Prima facie, as we say, right? I don't know how you pronounce it. In Latin, it would be prima facie. But prima facie, it doesn't make sense. On all other nights, we eat other vegetables. On this night, only maror. What are you talking about? On this night, we eat other vegetables. There's no prohibition against eating other vegetables or other greens. You ever hear they didn't start this one yet? You can't eat salad on Seder night? Of course you can eat salad. So, although we do have a custom in my house that we don't put the chrein, the horseradish, on the fish, on the Seder. But so maybe that's related to this. So on all other nights, we eat other vegetables. On this night, it's maror. Now, the Rambam says, okay, so some other people have a manuscript to say kuo maror, entirely maror, or it's mirorim. But anyway, let's see what they answer. So the first one who asked this question, the medieval commentators asked this. On this night, we also eat other vegetables. First of all, karpas. Nobody says you can't use parsley for karpas. In fact, you're supposed to use any green. Any green. You're not supposed to use maror, but any green. So we have a couple of answers to this question. I see here 5. So one answer is that Rashi writes, not really Rashi, it's a commentary attributed to him, that on this night, even the non-bitter vegetables that we eat are called maror. because we remember the bitterness that the Egyptians did to us. Where on the other nights, even the bitter vegetables are considered sweet. Like we add a little honey to our lettuce and to our some beets to the horseradish and make it sweet. Now Ritva says that on all nights we eat at the beginning of the meal other sweet vegetables that prepare a person to eat. But on this night, we begin the meal with maror, meaning to say usually you begin the meal with sweeter vegetables. But on this night, we begin the meal with the bitter vegetable. That's the idea. That's the idea. All right, come on in. All right, Ezra and Moshe.
Yeah, except that we begin with the karpas instead. We don't begin with that.
Okay, fair. Let's see if they discuss that.
And maybe that's just a pre-dinner.
Yeah. Well, it means maybe we eat the maror after the matzah before the main meal. They asked that question. They like that. Excellent. Okay. Kobe, have a seat. We're studying. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. The Rokeach explains that on all nights, we're not careful if we have the maror or not. But on this night, we have to look for the maror. We need the maror. The Rashbats explains that on this night, we're obligated to eat maror. Even if we eat a lot of other vegetables, we need to eat the maror. And the Barbanel, Jeff is going to have the Barbanel at his Seder. He's going to have many descendants of the Barbanel. So you have to remember this question. That the question is, well, about the maror. We eat other vegetables. Why does it say only maror? So the Barbanel writes in his commentary on the Haggadah, he writes that on all other nights we eat other vegetables in like a cooked dish and with bread. Or on this night, it's all maror, meaning to say we eat it raw without any bread and not cooked. We eat the vegetable differently. So that's the idea. This night we eat the vegetables differently. I guess they didn't eat salad vegetables back then. They just cooked them. That's what he was saying.
It's interesting. I don't know.
Well, you have to think about like what kind of vegetables did they have? What kind of vegetables did they have?
Potatoes.
Did they have potatoes?
No, potatoes come from North America.
Potatoes, I don't think they had potatoes back in the medieval times. In fact, you want to know something about potatoes? That they never ate potatoes for a long time because they thought it was disgusting. They didn't realize you had to cook it for a really long time. I'm not even joking. So once they discovered the potatoes, then all of a sudden everybody started saying, you can't eat gebrachst, you can't eat kidney because all of a sudden you have potatoes to eat. You don't need the other foods. Anyway, that's just I don't know if that's actually true. Now we have another question. And it says on all other nights we eat on all other nights we eat other vegetables. Wait 1 second. We're not commanded to eat other vegetables. You can go on, there's a lot of people out there like George Bush. He used to say he doesn't like vegetables, right? So what does it mean? You don't have to eat vegetables. So okay, fine. Anyway, that's whatever. Why don't we say on all other nights we eat other vegetables and maror, like we say about chametz and matzah, because we eat maror on other vegetables. Probably most people around this table are more likely to eat maror on all other nights than chametz. We eat maror. We're not a bread culture, so to speak. Like as much as in Middle East, everything is dip, pita, and all these dips. Here, it's much less. You eat the bread, it's a sandwich, but it's not like a dipping culture. So the idea is that the question is, why don't we say on all other nights we eat other vegetables and maror, and on this night just maror, which will be the direct parallel with the chametz and the matzah? So that's a simple question, but it's a good question. So how do we answer this? Meaning to say, so how do we answer this question? So the Zeragut explains that on all other nights, we eat other vegetables by themselves in order to, like, what's it called in French, Ben? When you eat the salad before the meal? It's like as an appetizer. What's it called? Like you eat the salad when you go to eat the salad, or maybe they eat the salad at the end of the meal in French culture. Yeah, so they eat a different thing to whet your appetite. What?
To cleanse the palate.
Right.
But I didn't know there was a name for that.
Right, but on this, right, but on this night, we don't do that. But on this night, we eat normally we don't eat normally they would eat the salad in advance to get everybody worked up, excited for the meal. But we would never eat the maror like that, but now we eat the maror in advance, okay. Okay, so now we have the big controversy. What do you say at your Seder? On this night is maror, on this night is entirely maror. Oh, we can have a book about this commentary. So some say that it's kula maror, and on this night we only maror. But Tosfos says no. He says it's on this night is maror, not entirely maror, because on this night we also eat other vegetables. So some say when it says kulo maror, it doesn't mean it's entirely maror. It means everybody eats maror. Kulo maror, everybody eats maror. Yeah, meaning to say,
Not to be too picky about.
right? You would think so, right? Okay,
Yeah, you can make that same argument about put matzah.
yeah, and the Chatan Sofer explains that the question is why on the night of Pesach we eat lettuce, which is a vegetable that you need to check from bugs, where the rest of the year we don't eat it. All right, the Divrei Yol, the Satmar Rebbe. By the way, I want to give it to the Divrei Yol. What a genius! The Satmar Rebbe. You see, the Satmar Rebbe's genius only sometimes. It was known at the time while he was alive, but now you see it also. Yesterday, I was driving back from the eclipse, and I was driving through from Syracuse, and I have this app called Kosher GPS, and my friend who was driving me is like, "Look on that app, see what's kosher." I'm like, "We're in the middle of the mountains. There's nothing kosher here. The mountains. There's nothing kosher." So I open it up. They said it's in 2 miles. You have like 8 or 9 exciting kosher restaurants. Why? The Hasidim, the Samar Hasidim, the real estate prices. No, the real estate prices were way too expensive in Brooklyn. So they started moving to Monroe, Kiryas Yoel, taking over like in upstate New York, just buying up land. And now they're all the way, they keep moving. They keep moving, whatever direction that is. I don't know if it's, what's it called, north, west, east, but they're in South Fallsburg. And you go into South Fallsburg, you have like a beautiful pizzas, a beautiful supermarket filled, the aisles filled, way better than anything local here, with 2 restaurants inside of it, in the heart of not even in the summer season. A lot of summer season, you have like 30 restaurants I counted there in the Kosher GPS. But this is, and then another guy has a pizza store, meat boards, like they're just overflowing with food there. That was his Satmar Rebbe's genius, that he said, we're going to start moving all over anyway, the Divrei Yol writes that it says that these 4 questions, okay, this is something powerful. He says these 4 questions hint to the 4 exiles. Okay, you can remember this at your Seder, if they give you a chance to say this. The 4 questions hint to the 4 exiles, meaning to say there's the exile of Rome, and so therefore this question of maror hints to the final exile, which is Rome. And so therefore we say kulo maror, because we're entirely maror, meaning to say it's continuing to this day.
Bitterness.
The bitterness. Well, this corresponds to the maror, corresponds to Rome, the exile from Rome, which is still, he doesn't tell me here. But we have to buy his Haggadah. Yeah, no, but I don't know. I thought he wants to match it to each one. So I guess we'd have to figure it out. We'd have to see the Divrei Yol's explanation. Yeah, there's definitely generally considered to be the 4 exiles, but how do we match it to? There's the Babylonian, the Greek, the Persian, but the Persian may be the Babylonian. So Babylonian, well, whatever it is, but the point is, he doesn't tell us they're matched, they mix and match, but that's what he says. Okay, So now we have the fundamental, wait, does he have to have a mincha? Okay, let's stop a mincha at this point. All right, let's stop the recording. No, we have a minute.